This is Captain Skoog, and I am a Midshipman Malloy, conducting the Veterans History Project for the University of Washington Naval ROTC. Today is the 26th of May in 2006, and we're just going to begin, and I'm going to have Captain Skoog talk about his history in the military, before and after as well. So, I'm going to begin. So, Captain Skoog, you're on.
Well, I was born and raised here in Seattle, went to Lincoln High School, and then came to the University of Washington, where I asked to be selected as one of the students in Naval ROTC, not because I was career-minded towards the Navy. It's just that it looked a heck of a lot better than the Army ROTC, and it was I felt a compliment, and it was much more selective. I was doing well at the university. I was a Malamute, which was a selective 30-odd boys serving in various activities. My committee was the one that met incoming athletic teams and showed them to their quarters, arranged entertainment at the house in basketball and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
A nice job. I was also selected for what we then called Purple Shield, which was a combination of activities and grades. So I was studying hard. I had gotten good grades in high school without working very hard. I didn't do that at the university. I got quickly convinced that I had to work hard, and I did. So the second summer in Naval ROTC, I went on a cruise to Alaska, as far as Skagway. The whole unit went on 4 old World War I destroyers.
Oh, wow.
Creaky, old, non-air-conditioned ships. We ate on benches. We ate buckets put on tables between our bunks in our quarters. It was really sloppy and wasn't exactly gracious living.
In actual buckets?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. What kind of food did you have on there? Was it good or was it bad?
The food was good, except for the way that it was served, and eating out of a slop bucket was kind of mean. But anyway, for the first time I started paying attention to what it was like to be a young officer on such a ship, and I was impressed. All of a sudden I had a career attitude, which I hadn't dreamed of before. And in those days, it's not true now, but in those days, a graduate of the Naval Academy was far more likely to enjoy a successful career than one who was not. So we had a program here in the unit where we could compete for, nationally, there were 30 appointments available. Mm-hmm. So one other fellow, Bill St. George, later Vice Admiral St. George, and I prepped with Lieutenant Commander Wendelberg, basically the gunnery instructor. And he wasn't the smartest guy in the world academically, but my, how he did work at that job. And he had a wife who was more qualified than he in English and related material. So he dragged her into the act. And we worked very hard, and my grades suffered, my university grades. But anyway, eventually we took this competitive exam, and I succeeded to get him one of the appointments. And St. George failed, but made it the next year, which was his second year. Mm-hmm. It had been my second year. So I went to the Naval Academy. I forget my train of thought.
We were going to the Naval Academy.
Oh, at that time, not like today, excuse me, all midshipmen took the identical curriculum except for the choice of foreign language.
Oh.
There were no electives, no way of opting out of a course, surveying it. So I was at a tremendous advantage in many subjects that I'd had as an engineer trainee and as a student Naval ROTC.
Mm-hmm.
I became one of what we called at the Naval Academy a slash.
That's a slash.
A hot running student. But it was because primarily of my prior experience with some subjects.
Right.
So I graduated with distinction. Later I was nominated without having been consulted. I was nominated for a Rhodes Scholarship.
A Rogue Scholarship?
Rhodes.
Oh, okay. What's that?
It's a scholarship that was founded by Cecil Rhodes, the South African diamond guy.
Okay.
It's still in force. Okay. And it's a very prestigious scholarship. But I had the choice of either getting to the Naval Academy at my own expense or coming to the University of Washington because I had attended here.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think much of my chances, and I came to the University of Washington and met the other candidates and was terribly impressed with the fact that I didn't have the credentials that some of them did.
Yeah. And
I didn't get selected as expected. But it was nice to have happened.
Right.
Leaving the Naval Academy, where I had been a commander of my company, we had a lottery for choice of assignment.
Oh, wow.
And I drew my laundry number, 805 out of a little over 1,000 students. And I got assigned to a battleship, the New Jersey, which was Fleet flagship. So right away I got to, and the war was on. It was about to come to a close. This was 1945. Germany had already surrendered, and we were fighting Japan. And the Fleet flagship alternated between Halsey and Spruance. So I was seeing big-time operators in action.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a sea story later on about Admiral Spruance.
All right.
I didn't like my first year. I didn't like the big ship Navy. I craved the kind of life that submarines represent. A little less protocol and formality, and long on action and less on protocol and brass and shine. We used to say, run she may, but shine she must.
Yeah.
I didn't like that Navy, and I thought maybe I'd get out. But I had to serve 1 year and become an officer of the deck, which I did. And I was in Elder Woofer submarine school.
An elder woofer? An elder woofer?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't hear what you said there.
And I don't remember what I said.
You said you were going to the submarine school?
Yeah. I became an officer of the deck on the battleship, and it was ineligible after a year.
Okay.
to go to sub school. And the ship's navigator was a experienced submarine war skipper by the name of Keithley, Myris Keithley. And he pushed me along, as he did several others. And we went to sub school. The girl that I married and I had decided that we would wait until the war was over. We married as I passed through town on the way to sub school.
How did that go?
Fine.
Was it a quick one, or?
No, we had a big wedding.
Oh, wow.
And started our honeymoon in the hills here of Seattle. And continued en route to sub school. We went to New York, took in a big place and stayed at the big hotel. My wife had never traveled much outside the state. She got a heavy dose right away.
She's pretty excited.
Yeah. And I ought to say a few words about my wife. She was an admirable Navy wife. She did the right things at the right time. Became particularly a good skipper's wife when that came for me. Anyway, from sub school we were sent to San Diego, where I served on 3 submarines.
Can you recall the name of those submarines?
Oh yes, Blueback, the Blower, and the Chopper.
Nice.
The Blueback, the first one, was given to the Turks under an assistance program of NATO, and I volunteered to be one among those few who went with the ship to Turkey to turn the ship over to the Turks. Well, that was an experience in itself. The Turks didn't do things the way we did things.
How so?
Well, for instance, they were mostly Muslim and supposedly didn't drink liquor, but they did. And they didn't eat pork, but they did. If you showed them sausage or anything but a ham, they would say, sure. So we stopped in New London on our way to Turkey, where 3 other submarines joined us. And our exec's wife was going to throw a farewell party. The Turkish skipper and engineer to be were aboard. And we had learned already that they didn't fail to drink. So the exec's wife said, what do I do? I know very well that the captain is fond of martinis. But if I start out by offering him only a martini, he's going to be embarrassed. So several of us were there, and we suggested you get a tea cart and you load it up with one of most everything. And you pass it around to the ladies, and after they are dandling a drink of their choice on their knee, you roll the cart over to the Turkish skipper-to-be and let him choose orange juice or ginger ale or a martini. And when that moment came, nobody was caught looking at him, but we were all watching him carefully. And he reaches out and picks up the martini, and the exec's wife immediately turned and started to serve our skipper, our American skipper. But she didn't get out of range before he set the empty glass back down and said, thank you. Chug-a-lug did martini. And later, after we had left, the Turks had a collision of the ship, which they had renamed the Dumplemar. They collided with a ferry that ran every few minutes across the Straits of Marmora and lost the ship with all hands. Not too good.
No, it's not good either.
So anyway, I was slow to qualify, which ordinarily takes about a year's time, and I kept being sent to a different ship. But I did finally qualify in San Diego. And I had the pleasure of serving under highly different captains and different sorts of submarines. The three submarines were all quite different in the way that they ran.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the people, the influence of the captain and personality. One captain was world famous for having been big on training and trained the bejesus out of his crew. It was, as I came down the ladder to join that ship, I heard the word passed. Now the reserve section demolition party, man your stations. Well, that gave you a feel for just how deeply that ship was trained.
Yeah.
The next captain took the position of being a clown. I despised him at first, but later came to realize that he was really pretty shrewd. He decided that he couldn't ever advance the state of training over what he had inherited. And instead he'd play the game that when asked if he would please demonstrate for the squadron commander a particular evolution, he would express doubt that it could be done successfully. And the crew just delighted in showing him that of course they could do it.
Yeah.
With bells on. So he'd play this game of not being sure. The crew would pour it on. It was a very successful operation. And I came to respect what he was up to.
You figured him out.
Yeah, yeah. And the third skipper was not well liked. He had a policy of, if ordered to shoot 2 torpedoes, he wanted at least 3 ready on each end of the ship. So if we were going to shoot 2, we had to prepare 6, which was a big chore. And over the space of a year, he never fired from aft at all. The after torpedo room gang was close to mutiny. But anyway, out of all this came my appreciation that there's more than one way to run a railroad and get there on time. And it influenced me later as to when to be demanding and insistent on performance, and when to relax a little bit and be surprised.
Yeah.